While you're thinking about your questions, I'll answer one. What's the makeup? You heard Danny talk about the makeup of the Commonwealth Court, and we've got a couple of election cycles to go to turn that court from red to blue. Superior Court, we got a great opportunity this year. 4 spots open on a 15-judge commissioned court, and if we elect all 4 of the Democrats, we can turn that court this year from red to blue in 1 year. And equally important, and I don't contribute to this, but there are 3 women, and I'm the token male running on the Democratic side. If we elect all 4 of us, then in January of this coming year, 10 of the 15 commission positions will be held by women as well. So and I think that's really, in a state that at the congressional level does a terrible job of electing women, we actually doing a pretty good job on the appellate courts. We can do an even better job this year. So that's an answer to the question that didn't get asked. So you have one now.
I have a question. It's about gerrymandering. There's a lot of energy in the state around unfair districts. They're pushing the Senate and the House bill to try to correct the gerrymandering situation. But there's some, there's the hang-up of the Republican leadership in the General Assembly that won't let these things get out of committee. But there's also some question about the makeup of the court, some hold up. I don't really understand how it's all working, but there's a reason that people don't want this to come up now because of the makeup of whatever court. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So I can start with an answer. So the redistricting question appears in a lot of different places. One place that it will eventually appear is in 2021. So after the census in 2020, that's when we have a decennial census and a decennial redistricting. And there, for state districts, each of the 4 caucuses gets to appoint a member of the commission. The commission gets appointed and draws them out. And then they're supposed to pick, the 4 caucuses are supposed to agree on a chair. They never do. And who picks the chair is the Supreme Court. So the Pennsylvania Supreme Court picks that 5th member, which is why the election of 2015 was crucial in terms of getting 3 strong Democrats on the Supreme Court. It's why electing Wayne Woodruff is so crucial this year, is to maintain that control of the Supreme Court. So that's one place where redistricting comes up. We also talked about the League of Women Voters case, which is in the Commonwealth Court right now. And that case parallels, to some degree, the U.S. Supreme Court case that was actually argued yesterday in the United States Supreme Court. And that question there is, does redistricting violate one person, one vote? And then we also have legislation, fair districts, and Matthew Fair Districts has come and spoken to this group. And that fair districts legislation is designed to amend our Constitution. And that's a long and cumbersome process. It requires 2 consecutive passages in the legislature, and then it's a referendum of the people. The challenge there, as James said, is to get the folks who purport to support it be willing to vote. And the problem with that is it takes power away from the legislature. And I think that's from. I'm not sure I have the problem. Maybe Carol.
Well, I think because it goes to the Commonwealth Court, and the composition of the Commonwealth Court may be the challenge for now. Maybe that's what the issue is in terms of the composition of the court. Because right now it's a great time to be in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, as Jeff mentioned, we were successful in 2015 as voters in flipping it from red to blue thanks to the election of 3 Democratic justices. But it has to move through the proper course, which would be through Commonwealth Court and then through then to ultimately to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Because we all know the composition of the General Assembly, the Senate, and we belabor that issue. We see that's a challenge. And federally, it could be a challenge too, specifically if the landscape of, as I mentioned earlier, of our federal district judges changes. If he's able to appoint, we can see where the challenges are. Maybe you know more as
No, you got it. It's really. Oh, can you guys hear me?
No.
Right on now.
Okay.
All
right. I already talk kind of loud sometimes, so it was really kind of a follow-up question to the League of Women Voters. state senators' offices that they will not move on that because of the SB 22 or the HB 20, no, SB 22, HB 722, because of the League of Women Voters, that it would be illegal, and there's no law about that.
That's just, so question, so there are people, again, the challenge for the Fair Districts folks is they get a lot of people saying, hey, great idea, I'll sign up, I'll be a co-sponsor, but I won't move, because they don't want to vote. And so I've heard this before too. One of the claims is, well, we can't move on this now because the League of Women Voters suit. And I don't know if Bernice will give me permission. I'm not going to curse in the church, but that's bunk. That's bunk. There is absolutely no prohibition on moving on the legislation. That's an excuse that people shouldn't fall for a second. That's an entirely different track. The issue of whether or not the current map is unconstitutional is entirely separate from the question of should we do this a different way. And what the legislation is, we're going to do this a different way. We're going to create the commission in a different way. We're going to take out partisan politics. The two have nothing to do with one another, and we should call that what it is when people make that claim. It's just simply not true.
Because, let's face it, the party that's causing the issue is in power. They're the ones that did the gerrymandering, so they're not about to agree, okay, well, we're going to do what we did, because they're the ones that created it. So, of course, they're going to put all kinds of obstacles in the way from change, because they want to be able to keep the majority is, what is it now? It's about...
Almost veto.
Yeah, it's almost veto-proof, but not quite veto-proof. So, of course, they're not going to agree to do anything to change it.
Yes, if we just go down the line, and if you can tell me your favorite Supreme Court case and why. I'm going U.S. Supreme Court here on you. U.S. Supreme Court. Or if you have one Pennsylvania Supreme Court, you can add
Well, so I think that's a hard question. There are lots of great cases. I'd say, in terms of what's going on right now, I would say, and this is in terms of recent cases, we can talk about the landmark cases like around the Board of Education, of course, but I would say, in terms of recent cases, the Supreme Court's decision in Obergefell, which was a couple of years ago now, which was the final one of a series of cases that said the right to marry in Pennsylvania, in the United States, is fundamental, and it's a violation of the Constitution to prohibit same-sex couples from marrying. And that was, to me, the reason I think that's my favorite at the moment is that brought to a conclusion a social movement in the country that kind of happened so quickly. It was, on one hand, it took a huge, long amount of time. We had Loving versus Virginia in 1967 that struck down Virginia's law that prohibited interracial marriage. So it's a long time from 1967 until 2015. But we had a broad social movement that I think influenced the Supreme Court, and we rapidly got to, I think we all knew gay marriage was going to be protected. Eventually, how long was it going to take? And I like the Obergefell case because, and I've having to write about it since then, on same-sex common law marriage in the court, and the Superior Court, but it really it brought to a conclusion a social movement that gathered steam and then got legal recognition relatively quickly. So that's my recent favorite Supreme Court case.
Well, I like to ask this question because I know as a appellate, you're running for appellate positions, and you have to do some opinion writing.
So far, I have been on the court for a little over a year. This calendar year, I've issued 230 opinions.
Yeah.
So we are a very, very busy court. As Judge Nichols said, we decide 8,000 cases a year, and that's about 300 written decisions a year per judge.
Well, I kind of have two favorites. I'm going to go back for an oldie but goodie. United States v. Nixon just has such significance today that the... you said that. Well, no, yours was excellent about people having the right to marry. But I think right now the significance of the Nixon case in light of what we're facing now, that no one's above the law, and that we don't have a king, we have a president. We have an elected official that's answerable to the people. That the president works for us, We don't work for him, we're not his servants, we're not his subjects. So that case, in fact, I went back and I found myself kind of going over it because it's so relevant to what we're going to now. And being a criminal court judge, I think my second favorite is the Eileen case, which had to do with mandatory minimum sentencing, which required that before sentencing could be rendered, the triggering fact that would trigger the mandatory minimum, if in other words had to do with the possession of a gun and drugs or certain other factors, that had to be decided beyond a reasonable doubt by a fact finder, whether it be a jury or a judge, instead of based on the lower standard of preponderance of the evidence. So it enabled criminal court judges myself, because I'm at the trial level right now, unlike Jeff, I'm actually trying the cases, doing jury cases. It gives us, as criminal court judges, the discretion to decide what is appropriate for the person that's in front of us. Because if we're limited by, if this factor's here, that's it, you can't get any kind of consideration or departure, that stops justice from really happening. So those are the two for me.
I'm going to talk about United States versus Nixon again after
It's really a crucial case.
He's the word
I don't know if anyone really cares what my favorite case is because I'm not running for judge. So I can't tell you what Tina's would be, but I think that someone would like to talk about the Nixon case, so I'm going to give my answer to and then I think we have someone.
Oh, wait, okay. How many months multiple so far?
I have 4 semesters in.
There we go, there we go.
No, but truly, for me, one of the most frustrating things for me in my whole life was when people think that, and again, I was talking about my service, when people think that women can't serve to the same extent as men. And some of the best intelligence officers I have ever worked with were women. And there was a case, United States v. Virginia, where Ruth Bader Ginsburg applied intermediate scrutiny to sex and allowed women to go to the Virginia Military Institute and to commission as officers alongside with men into the Army. So I think that was an incredible decision. And just to reiterate, on a totally separate note, anyone who thinks women can't serve alongside men in the armed forces should sign up and serve alongside someone and see what they can do. So United States v. Virginia.
And I agree with the judge about the Aaliyah case in the sense that I was a prosecutor for 10 years and I was in the district attorney's office in Berks County when that case came down. So I have done work as both a defense attorney and a prosecutor. And as a prosecutor, there were certain instances where mandatory minimums for drug cases was appropriate. But there were a lot of cases where, even as a prosecutor, you would have wanted to offer someone a lesser sentence for a guilty plea, but you just weren't allowed to by law. So I have to say, even as a prosecutor, taking that mandatory away was not something that made my job harder. It actually made it easier because people still wanted to accept responsibility for what they had done wrong, but the sentences were so harsh that they would roll the dice and go to trial. I have much trial experience, and I'm grateful for that because people went to trial because they didn't want to spend 2 years in jail for a drug offense, because that was what the judge had to do. There was no discretion. So now that there is discretion by the court, even though I am, like I said, a former prosecutor, half of my career has been as one, I do agree that the judge should have the discretion in the sentencing. So I would say that I don't know if anyone cares what my opinion is because I'm not running for judge, but I'll tell you that I agree that that was a very important case that I think affected the community in a positive way. And it doesn't mean that people weren't punished severely who deserved to be because they had many prior arrests or a high prior record score. But it meant that maybe the first offense that someone had, they didn't have to go away for a minimum sentence regardless, just based on the law. So I do think that was a good case that made it more fair for everyone. Justice was still served, but it was more fair.
I'm going to just mention Nixon. I apologize to you. This is because I want to make sure people understand the context of the United States versus Nixon.
I reached the crack in.
So remember, this is 1974. United States versus Nixon is the case in which a special prosecutor wanted the tapes from Richard Nixon. And Richard Nixon fought tooth and nail to not have to turn those tapes over. Right? And that was a huge moment for the rule of law. I was actually speaking to a group of Chinese lawyers about a year ago now, and they wanted to know about United States versus Nixon because that was just amazing to them that we could have a court. And what happened to United States versus Nixon? He was ordered to turn over the tapes. We waited 16 days to find out what was going to happen, and he resigned. And that was because we live in a world where we have the rule of law. And so thank you so much for mentioning that, because it's certainly timely now to be thinking about the importance of the president being subject to the rule of law.
Michael. Hi, I'm a registered independent voter, and I've been frustrated over the years trying to locate information to evaluate different candidates. This year, it seems social media is more popular and the internet is more popular. Can you suggest any sources I can use to evaluate candidates?
Information about
All the candidates we're going to be voting for November 7th.
Well, yeah, I think all of us will have websites and Facebook pages that have information. I think Jane mentioned earlier, the Pennsylvania Bar Association does evaluations. Their website is there's not only are there evaluations of us there, but our 30-page whatever we have to submit to them in order to get the evaluations available there too. So if you got time, there's a lot of material there as
And
well.
also the Pennsylvania Democratic State Committee has, for the entire slate of 8, all of us that are running, complete bios on each the candidate, as well as a link. All of our websites are linked from the page. You don't have to go looking around trying to find our website. You can go right to, was it padems.org? padems.org. All of us, all of the candidate information is there. You can go to each of our websites right from there, so it's unprecedented. There's also going to be a series of calls. I'm going to mention phone calls. You can get on the call, and each of us will take turns. In fact, I think you and Maria started. Yeah, Maria and McLaughlin and Jeff are actually kicking off the GOTV calls, so you'll be able to hear us directly, and people will be able to get it. So I think it's unprecedented, this election cycle, just how much information is available about the slate of 8.
Thank you. And locally, Tina Boyd does have a website, and you are certainly able to see her bio. She was recommended the most highly by the Berks County Bar Association. They do a secret ballot to all attorneys in the county who are members of the bar, and they say, who would you recommend to be judge? And she was endorsed by the Bar Association as being the most highly recommended of anyone who was running for judge, and that was even in a primary. So, when there were many more people running. She's also been endorsed by the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, recently, and there's much information that you can find about Tina locally on websites and things like that.
And just the last point, so don't just take our word for it. We have websites and you should look up the candidates' bios, but think of an issue you care about, and if there's a group that represents that issue, they do endorsements. So if you care about workers' rights, I know Judge Moulton, Judge Nichols, my mom are endorsed by the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO. If you care about environmental issues, you're the League of Conservation Voters, or the Sierra Club, or the Planned Parenthood, or the National Organization of Women. If there are issues you care about, we've probably filled out a questionnaire, and there's probably an endorsement done on it. So that's another thing to look up.
Can you hear me? If I could bring up the Nixon case. When you were talking, but the thought occurred to me, I feel as though there have been a number of situations where individuals in the administration have been asked for certain things, and those items have been extremely slow, or individuals have indicated that they might have indicated something on a form and then later, oops, I forgot, or oh, that's right, I did use my personal email for them. And I think we're seeing those things happen, so it gives us the appearance that we're not functioning in a rule of law, nothing to address it.
That's probably a question a little bit outside of the campaign, but I will say this, and again, there's a special prosecutor. One of the things we don't know a lot about what goes on, because those investigations appropriately take place in the grand jury and grand jury secrecy, but certainly the reporting suggests that there's been a lot of information that's requested by subpoena. That's what happened in the Nixon case. There was a subpoena, and Nixon's claim was, his lawyer's claim was, executive privilege, we don't have to turn this stuff over. And they made that argument in court, and it was rejected unanimously. Another great reason about the Nixon case, rejected unanimously, including by 3 judges who Nixon himself appointed, was rejected unanimously by the Supreme Court. So we'll see that play out. I think that's, to the extent there is an active criminal investigation seeking this information, you'll see that play out over time. So requests get made by subpoena, there's a process for fighting that subpoena, I'm optimistic based on Nixon and other cases that to the extent that a special prosecutor wants information, they're going to get it.
Another thing I would say to that is it ain't over.
Right.
You know, the hearings are ongoing, so it ain't over. Because even in the Nixon case, as you recall, there were portions of tapes that were erased, remember, and the shredding that went on. So even in the Nixon case itself, there was a lot of shenanigans going on with material being looked at, because in email in the 70s. But if they had, that would have been deleted too. But the stuff was shredded, tapes were erased, lost. That's not new, and that won't happen. That even happens in day-to-day cases that we have that aren't at that kind of level. But that doesn't stop justice from happening. So I would just say it ain't over, and let's just wait until the end to see what we're going to get. You know, democracy is like a messy process. You know, sometimes it's like watching a slow train wreck sometimes. It ain't pretty, but it does get done. And it's a full contact sport. And like, who's a football fan? Okay, just like you see people playing football, some people get carried off the field. And it's the same thing in democracy. You know, people clash, and some people get carried off on their shields, carried off the field. So it's not a free process. It's not a clean, precise process. It's a very messy process. But ultimately, it works. Look where we are now after what happened in the Nixon presidency. So I would just say it ain't over yet. And I'm still very optimistic about what will happen.
I'll remind myself every